Good evening. I'm sorry, I was so into my notes, trying to be organized and trying to be linear for tonight's show. So, welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Elizabeth McGee, and again, I have meat prepared at the dinner hour. So, yes, I was very engrossed in my notes. I'm going to pick up right where I left off, talking about trees, talking about the parabolic meaning behind the whole usage of trees and the verbiage that is around shrubbery, grass, trees, all the agricultural words the Bible uses. So I wanted to start here and give a couple quotes from some texts. It says the word keeps confirming the word, and I keep finding confirmation. The Lord is good, and I do feel He just completely continues to confirm to me in many ways this track we're on. Uncovering the mysteries. We live in a time right now, as I've said, that we live in where knowledge shall increase, and that is not necessarily related just to physical knowledge about the world or biology or whatever, but spiritual understanding. The hidden mysteries are going to become extremely abundantly available. Understanding and wisdom will increase. I have been studying deeply into Kabbalah, and I've done teachings on this again. I think Kabbalah is just a gem. I think true Kabbalah, classic, Hasidic, Jewish, what the sages understood Kabbalah is just an absolute gem. And it has helped me tremendously in uncovering the mysteries. But this is what one of the sages, the sages and the prophets are kind of synonymous words. People really do need to understand that Israel, the history of Israel, and I'll use the word religion for lack of a better word, of Israel, their prophets, that is a very unique, group of men, people on the planet. And of course, women were prophets also. So this category of person, the way Israel, it's just unique to any other group that has passed on esoteric knowledge and understanding. But this is from a site I was reading, and it confirms what I've been saying all along, so I thought I'd just open with this. Actually, I'm going to start with Barnabas. I think a great text people should read is the Epistle of Barnabas. It's a New Testament epistle. It's considered canon by the Ethiopian Church. The Coptic Ethiopian Church. It has been found in all over the place, and it has been found together with many of the New Testament books. Many of the early church fathers considered it canon or considered it scriptural or inspired. But this, this is from Barnabas 6:10, and he's talking about that we can come into a land filled with milk and honey. That's a parabolic words for something, a spiritual reality, which really means, and it says it right out there in Barnabas, he completely explains it, that it is this idea of you can come into wisdom and knowledge of the secrets. It is one who understands a parable, is one who is wise and skilled in Torah and loves Yahweh. That's it in a nutshell. So I thought I would just sort of open that. Wisdom and knowledge are the principal things. He always said, get wisdom, get chokmah, get Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit who is our mother. All wisdom and knowledge comes from God through the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so then let's go to here where the sages are talking. Our sages encoded much of the esoteric tradition that they had received in matters relating to nature and astronomy. So when I talk about the trees and all the agricultural language referring to nature, or a lot of it also is in terms of astronomy. And this is where when you talk about the sun, the moon, and the stars, the celestial, this is what I'm saying, they are encoding. They're fully, that they have encoded esoteric tradition in matters, words, things that describe nature and astronomy. In other words, they utilize the knowledge of nature and astronomy that was accepted among Gentile scholars of their time in order to transmit hidden which is what the word esoteric or the word occult means. It means hidden. Not everything hidden, God says, is bad. I mean, he says he has many hidden things hidden in his chambers, hidden in his secret chambers. Thus, they never intended to teach the physical facts per se concerning these phenomena, but rather to utilize these facts as garments or coverings or vehicles for communicating esoteric understandings. One should therefore not think that they were wrong because a particular scientific model is no longer accepted. Their intention was to clothe the hidden tradition in the accredited knowledge of their generation. That very generation could have been clothed in a different garment according to what was accepted or scientific understanding in other generations. Part of this is my copier was low on ink, so part of this is kind of blank. The originator of the particular Haggadic statements would have done himself, well, I can't read that because it's lost, but the point is, this is what this is what is done. This is where the mysteries are encoded. But I do want to say something because I don't know that I totally agree that they were never intended to teach physical facts. Because actually, I think they're totally right on, and much of this is playing out to be true, like that great verse that says, the life of the flesh is in the blood. The soul life of man is in the blood. We know that now. Well, that's an ancient verse out of Hebrews. It's probably 600 BC. I'm just guessing in this. So, I mean, I've said this, I believe the ancients were extremely brilliant and were dealing with a very full deck of understanding and information. I also want to say that this is what I think, because Solomon was considered the wisest man, the wisest king that ever lived, and part of it was because you read, he was such a student of nature and astronomy. He would study deeply these things. Botany, he was a great herbalist, he was a great naturalist, all these things. And this is where it says to study these things because you will see great principles, you will see, but this is what I think, and I'm going to find one of these. I'm going to go to some store, buy myself a little toy where you stack, it has a name, and my kids used to play it, but one cup fits in another cup, fits in another cup, fits in another cup, and it telescopes up and down. That's exactly what I think it is. I've always said the truth is like a template. Once you get that template, you can put it on anything, and it fits, it fits, it fits, it fits. And that is how you know when you have true revelation, and that your revelation is paralleling as you're moving from realm to understanding to understanding. That's very key. So here's another little snippet from the same website about Kabbalah. It says now, I've talked about this before. The Hebrews have 4 levels of understanding. Every verse is encoded. It's easy enough for a child to understand, but it is written so deep that, the greatest mind, Isaac Newton, spent half his whole life. The majority of the meat of his life was spent in trying to understand Torah and actually understand the prophecies of the end times. I mean, if you know anything, that's what he really drove him. He used to teach in the university to make a living, I'm sure, and he was a great scientist. But what really drove him, and he was a great reader of esoteric books and parchments, anything he could get his hands on. And also, I want to say this, and this is when we go into the trees. The Peshat level is just easy enough for a child to understand, and there's other levels. But when you get down to the Sod level, which is where the esoteric, the mysteries are, it's for the adult themes. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible that's very adult, and you really don't want it. You want to protect children. That's why a lot of Kabbalists understand it. You had to be an adult, married, you had to have children. You had to be at a level where you could really understand and receive very adult themes and information without going off the deep end. Okay? Okay, so that kind of laid my groundwork again for going to keep moving on here, because I believe if I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, I mean, it's proven to me, and if I can transmit this understanding to you that trees. There were two trees in the garden, that this whole concept is parabolically speaking about two races of created beings, two sons of God, which we had Adam and Eve, and the Adamic race. It was infiltrated with the Nakash, with Samuel, the serpent, or the devil, a million different names, epithets for this. Genetic mixture happened, okay? The evil inclination that is in man, it's got a lot of different, I went through this in one of my other videos. There's about 20 different phraseologies that the prophets have used to transmit this understanding, the carnal man, the evil eye, the evil inclination, the hidden, the beast character in us. These are all ways of talking about that we were infiltrated by another species who was a fallen species, okay? And this was all part of, and this is iniquity. This is the original sin. This is what has got us into this realm we live, this place we are where death reigns now, and how it is all being fixed by Yahweh. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But it is so evident and obvious. And this is what is so there in all the text when you have an understanding of the parabolic language. Like Jesus said, and this is called the keys to the kingdom, when you have the right key to open up the understanding. Jesus spoke in parables. Yeshua spoke, and many of them he did not interpret to the crowds, okay? Because again, he treated them in a lot of ways like children, okay? But to his disciples, to those who he expected more from, to those who were going to be the first kings and priests in the new administration, so to speak, he expected a lot more. He explained the mystery or the hiddenness behind them. The parable of the wheat and the tares in Matthew 13, classic. And that's where we're going to go more into a lot of that whole strain of agricultural words that are used to speak specifically about the reality that I just spoke of in the garden with genetic mixture, okay? Because everything that was created was good, and everything was to reproduce after its kind, within its genus or within its species. And again, let me just make this disclaimer. I am not at all talking about race here. Anyone who makes this elitist or racist is not speaking from the Spirit of God, from the Chokmah, the Ruach HaKadosh. We are talking about, seriously people, we are talking about what's all over your movies today. We are not alone in this big universe. We've never been alone. So that's again my jumping off point. Let me just start by reading a lot of scripture verse. I'm just going to go so that you can begin to help, your ears can hear. You know that whole parable about he who hears more will be given. It's all about hearing. The whole point about it, we need to see. We can see, which is like a seer. We can kind of, and it's not a physical seeing. Like I've said, we are not talking. You can see these concepts coming together, and you can hear. You can hear what the Spirit is saying. You can hear the wisdom. You can see the wisdom, okay? So let's just start here with Isaiah. And I think it's Isaiah 6:5, because I have a little tear in my paper, which took that off. But I'm pretty sure it's Isaiah 6:5. So let's just start with this. So now let me tell you what I am going to do to my vineyard, okay? Here are the agricultural words. And what, all right, will be consumed. I will break down its walls, his vineyard. I will break down its walls, and it will be trampled ground. I will lay it waste. It will not be pruned or hoed, but briars and thorns will come up. Listen to those words, briars and thorns. Those are the words that I am going to unpack tonight. I will also change the clouds to rain, no rain on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his delightful plant. Okay, so this is tautology. I've been through this. The verse is explained right there. The parabolic language, we're talking about people and people groups. We're talking about the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And now we're going to start with this. The house of Israel is pretty much referred to as, is the vineyard, the vine. This is another way they kept it straight, because I just told you, it's encoded and it's encrypted in parabolic language or in natural phenomena. So the vine is the house of Israel. The plant, which is the tree, the translations. I feel bad for the translation, because none of them really ever had much of this. This got lost in the shuffle, and when you try to dig this out, the translations are absolutely out of control. That's why you got, for one word, you got a million different translations. They did the best they could, praise God. But it's time. See, that's why. Everything is in its season. It's time to come out. And the men of Judah, his delightful plant, which I want to tell you is the fig tree. It's a tree. Plant is the word tree. When it refers to that, it's the fig tree. Okay? So just so you can have that advanced. Now, here's Ezekiel 31:18. To which among the trees of Eden are you thus equal in glory and greatness? Yet you will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the earth beneath. You will lie in the midst of the uncircumcised with those who were slain by the sword. So is Pharaoh and his hordes, declares the Lord, or the Yahweh Elohim. I like the Hebrew names because it's a Hebrew understanding, and we Gentile Christians need to go back to the Hebrew roots. But that was tautology again. He started out with the trees of Eden. And I told you there were 2 trees in the garden. They were in Eden. The prophets are not confused. They use this over and over. We're the confused ones. But we're getting out of confusion and into the light, into truth. So anyways, we have it right here. The tautology. I mean, when do you circumcise trees? I mean, just come on, people. You just don't do that. Okay? You will lie in the midst of the uncircumcised, those who were slain by the sword. So is Pharaoh and his hordes. So the trees in the Garden of Eden being here with Pharaoh and his hordes. Total tautology. Here's another one, Isaiah 2:12. For the Lord of hosts will have a day of reckoning against everyone who is proud and lofty, and against everyone who is lifted up. Obviously, he's talking to people here, right? That he may be abased. And it will be against all the cedars of Lebanon. Again, tautology. A equals B. It's a mathematical formula. A equals B. Okay? So it goes here. It will be against all the cedars of Lebanon that were lofty and lifted up, against all the oaks of Bashan. For all the cedars of Lebanon tall and lofty, and the oaks of Bashan. I did some more teachings in previous videos on the trees about the oaks, the cedars of Lebanon and the oaks of Bashan. Those, you can really figure out, those are absolutely speaking about people groups. Okay, and I'm not going to go into that, but I want you to see that. This is from Joel 1:12, okay, and this is the vine. Okay, the vine. Now, in this little footnote in here, it says from an unused root word meaning to bend, which is a vine, is a twisting, especially the grapevine or the grape tree, because it's important to put grape, because see, they consider shrubs trees. It's a tree still, even though it's a low spreading, viney thing, it's still a tree. And this is really important, but because when you understand the house of Israel and how they spread out, they were exactly, I mean, they were low to the ground. They'd lost so much height. They had fallen so far. They were a low spreading vine, okay, that just went and trailed all over the earth. It dries up. So here we have again that, let me just start over because the vine, which is just put in house of Israel, especially the grapevine, dries up. And the fig tree fails. This is house of Judah and house of Israel, parabolic language. The pomegranate, the palm, the apple, all the trees of the field dry up. Indeed, rejoicing dries up from the sons of man. Now, in its context, in Joel, and I can't go into that, but that's, see, now we can figure this out. What Joel's talking about is we really understand how these words are used by the prophets. Okay, one more here. This is Isaiah 53:13. Okay, instead of the thorn bush will grow the Jupiter. Instead of briars, the myrtle will grow. This will be for the Lord's renown, for an everlasting sign that will endure forever. People, he's not talking about juniper trees living forever, and he's talking about the people as represented. But there's a contrast here we're going to do, and I'm going to get there, between the thornbush and the juniper. And this is what I said about the translations. There are so many translations for their cherries. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. They did the boxwood and the acacia and the ash, and they're forever trying to figure out what trees, what literal natural trees these things were representing, when it's really totally a spiritual understanding. But this, I want to know the clue. I can't unpack this tonight, but those who are farther along in the Hebraic understanding, this is all represented also in the 7 species of trees and in the festival, and I believe it's in the Sukkot, the last feast, Sukkot, and they have 4 species of trees. I believe that they wave at the end. That is so. Now we can uncover that. Okay, so we will get that. All right, so those are from the canon, okay, but I have I want to go there. Okay, but this is from the Gospel of Nicodemus. Like I said, there is so much now available. All the writings are coming out, so people can access on Google. Boom, you have no excuse not to have full understanding, to have full wisdom. The Gospel of Nicodemus. Now hear how he stays in line with this. O Prince Satan, thou great keeper of the infernal regions. You could put hell in there. The abyss, the underworld, Tartarus. They're all similar words. All the advantages which thou did acquire by the forbidden tree, and the loss of paradise thou hast now lost by the wood of the cross, which is, and this goes into exactly what I was talking about last week, which is the wood of the cross is Tav, is Yeshua. He is the tree, the Tav, that came, that was bent, but did not break, that redeemed us. So in other words, let me go through and say, because the forbidden tree, and I have to get, because this is a little, I can't go into this tonight, but there's 2 things going on. Samuel, the horse and the rider, the forbidden tree was the Nakash in the garden. That's the serpent race. That's a Nakash. That's you can go and Google that. That is so coming out. People are understanding this, and this is all over the world of mythology. You go into the Mayans and the Incas, the feathered serpent. There's so many, even those ancient alien shows are talking about these. These are the aliens. These are the watcher and the fallen angels. Okay, a fallen angel, a Nakash. Okay, is the forbidden tree. So I just want to tell you, these guys are still tracking. They know what they're saying. Here's another one from, this is from the 2nd book of Adam and Eve. And it says here, this is chapter 1, verse 8. And in that place were many, and this is what I'm beginning to understand. Okay, I'll just read the verse. And in that place were many fruit trees and forest trees. Get ready for tautology here, people, okay? And in that place were many fruit trees and forest trees. It goes right to say, his sister bare him children, who in their turn began to multiply by degrees until they filled that place. Remember, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, fruit trees are women, and forest trees are men. This is what is so exciting. I'm beginning to really understand this thing. And even by studying the science of how trees reproduce, this is so accurate. That's why I'm telling you, I think the science is totally going to hold up. I absolutely believe with every fiber I'm being, the Bible, when it's understood, when it's written, the prophets, is the most scientific treatise out there, because it came from God who created everything. Why would he be confused and give bad information? It just wouldn't happen. So fruit trees are women and forest trees are men. Very interesting, okay? All right, now here's one from, this must be the Acts of John. And John, when he saw, it says, he's talking to someone, O essence of corruption, full of darkness, O death, exulting in them that are thine, O fruitless tree, full of fire, O tree that bearest coals for fruit. See, when we understand, this has got another thing in here, fire. It's got fire and coals. This is another whole parabolic understanding, kind of saying the same thing, staying in the same. Remember I told you that one can stack inside another and stack of another. So we have a fruitless tree full of fire coming out of that one. This is a righteous John. Okay, again, I said this is because it's not just trees. Like I said, then you have vines, you have fruit trees, you have trees, you have shrubs. In the third day, he made grass and he made herbs. So all of this agricultural kind of keeps dovetailing, and you have to understand the words. Isaiah 46 says, all flesh is grass. Now that's a tautology. But how can flesh be grass? Well, you have to understand what he's saying when he's tying it to grass. What spiritual truth is he imparting here? Its glory is like the flower of the field. You know, Yeshua is mentioned one time. He is the lily of the valley. Okay, so there is flower agricultural language. There is now First Peter says, 1:24, all people again are like grass, and all their glory like the flowers. So there's Peter, because I want you, that was Isaiah 46, that flesh is grass and talks about its glory is like the flower of the field. Isaiah Old Testament, New Testament, Peter picks it up, 1 Peter 1:24, all people are like grass and all their glory like the flowers. So I just wanted you to see that also. So now we're going to go into some kind of more specific words. Like I said, I wanted to unpack, because in the parable in Matthew 13, I believe, the parable of the wheat and the tares. And Jesus is saying that at the end of the age, you know, the tares are going to be burnt up. And then what do the tares represent? And then he tells you, right, he tells them right there that the tares is seed of the wicked one, descendants, offspring. Never underestimate that word seed literally means, and don't ever try to make it descendants, offspring, because out of the seed comes, okay, the DNA makes, you got to have a zygote, you get that seed planted, especially in a woman, it means planted in the womb, which is the ground, it produces fruit, which is the offspring. That's seed. So, but I wanted thorns and thistles, briars and brambles, weeds and tares. These are all the same kind of words that describe the same kind of thing. And what they absolutely represent is the seed of the serpent. See, okay, so as we started in the garden, this is what was said. There would be two seeds. Remember, he said that somebody came and planted seed in my Father's vineyard. And so this is where you get this kind of the seed, the offspring, the descendants of the serpent. The serpent was an Akash. That Eve and Samuel, it's very spelled out. This is very, really spelled out in a lot of Hebraic literature, which, you know, most Christians, they just don't even know is out there, that understanding, because the two houses have been so separate. This is why we're in this season now, see, because we're coming, my one rabbit trail, I hope, the time of the Gentiles is coming to an end. The season of Yeshua, you know, giving grace, the 2 days to go after the lost sheep of the house of Israel is coming to an end. It's really, we are in the end game, absolutely. And what's happening is now we are going into the reunification of the whole house of Israel, which is the house of Israel, which is the northern kingdom that was scattered as seed, and the house of Judah, which, but, you know, I just have to say this, when you really listen and study out this, there has been so many dispersions. I mean, the house of Judah has been almost spread around